Welcome back to Millers in Motion. If it's your first time here, my name is Ryan, my wife is Lauren, and together we live in our fifth wheel full-time, showing you how we do it, essentially. If it is your first time here, please consider subscribing, and today we have a very fun treat. We're gonna go on a quick factory tour of the brand new Brinkley RV. So if you know Lauren and I now in any capacity, you know this isn't gonna be your traditional tour. We're gonna cherry pick the highlights and what at the end of the day matters the most to the end user of the things they're doing differently inside this building to build RVs. Let's go ahead and head inside and start talking about this amazing new facility right now. All right, well, we are now inside Plant 1, which, by the way, is just the beginning of a 250-acre campus that the Brinkley team is investing, which is absolutely insane that they're putting that much money towards it. But right behind me here, you notice there's just a bunch of frames sitting here. The cool thing about that is, well, it's Indiana. In the winter, it gets a little cold, and frames sitting outside can do things. And so they just bring them in, and they let them acclimate to the temperature inside the building, and then they come right into this massively beautiful, if you're in a manufacturing plant. So just as a heads up, if you know us by now, you know we're not an overly technical channel. It's the best way to say that. We break stuff, we fix it, we teach you what not to do, essentially. I do want to say a huge thanks to Jeremiah and the team here at Brinkley for letting us come in and tour it and kind of staying late after the end of the day. We're going to show you some of the big reasons why how they do things matters for you, the end user. There's a lot of technical things that you wouldn't think matter to you at the end of the day. I guarantee it does. So while this isn't a very sexy looking thing, at the end of the day, just the fact that I'm holding, in case you're curious, is a wiring harness. I'm holding a 12-volt wiring harness in my hand is kind of a crazy thing because this takes time. This isn't something that you just magically do. This takes time and effort. But the reason why it is that way is so when they're wiring the rig, everything is already done for the people actually installing it. So if you notice, we are up here on the mezzanine where some of the wiring, especially all the wiring through the roof systems, as well as, well, the roof systems are built, and they have these huge, really fancy looking, don't let Ryan touch ever systems that haul all this stuff out. Well, at the end of the day, what that does is, one, makes a very happy employee, and at the end, in addition to that, a happy employee makes a better RV. One other little note that I'm gonna say is it's actually nice in here. For some reason, it's in the 90s in Indiana when I'm here. I guess that's just lucky me because I brought Texas with me. It's currently 76 up here. It's nice. I don't wanna go back outside. And they do that so the employees have a better workspace. Plus, I'm sure they thought of this, but your tolerances all stay the same when your humidity levels stay the same and all of your temperatures stay the same when you start talking about working with metals and especially woods when they expand and contract. So the rigs are being built in the same conditions all the time, every time. Just like a wiring harness, the same every time, all the time. So on that same note, the one thing that you probably never truly expected to see when you're talking about the build of your RV, this is a really, really fancy vacuum. Well, besides the fact that they want to vacuum up the floors and do things like our Dyson with dog hair, when they're building these rigs, typically what you see in an RV factory is you'll get an air hose and they just start spraying stuff everywhere. It doesn't magically exit. There's no poof and it's gone. It's just moving it around. So what they do is they've installed these ridiculously insane, pretty much full factory vacuum systems to make it easier for the staff to clean up after themselves. And what does that do for you, again, the end user? It makes a great and happy employee because their jobs are a little easier and it's cleaner. You're not breathing all that stuff in. Again, happy employee still is doing the right thing. But at the end of the day, you're talking about using adhesives. You're talking about using things that if some of that sawdust or whatever the material happens to be gets in the way of some of that adhesive, you're not gonna have as good of a seal. And so decals may come off, logos may come off, whatever that's adhesive or anything along those lines. Plus, you couple that with your rig's just gonna be cleaner at the end of the day when it leaves the factory. So when it goes down the road and transport to your dealership before your dealership PDI, there's not as much to clean up because there's just not as much to clean up. Simple math. So we're moved down the line. We're kind of doing this hot and quick, but I'm at this rig still doesn't have a slide box and it's getting close, but if you notice right here, so this is the corner seal. Typically on a rig right here, you're gonna have a piece of silicone. There's no silicone. If I rub that on my rig, stuff would come off. So they're doing a really cool system that there's no external silicone or sealant on the outside of this. They're actually using a Turnabon underneath and then bringing everything together so that you don't have to seal that way. If you've been following our channel for a long time now, you know that we completely resealed all of our trim pieces and everything on a roof with the Turnabon. There's a reason why I did that. Also, if you've owned a rig for longer than about a year and it's heated up, that silicone eventually collects dirt. You need to clean it, and then when you clean it, it sometimes comes off. Then you have to reseal your rig every year or so, or at least you should be if you have silicone. You don't have to do that here. I love things that essentially make my life easier. So at the end of the day for you, it's a less maintenance rig. So let me ask just a quick question. Do you think that your RV, regardless of make, model, or anything, was completely pressure sealed? I know we just talked about the Turnabon on the inside, the walls, behind the trim pieces, and so there's no silicone. But think about that. If you shut every door, slides open, every door, every window is shut, do you think if you hooked up a device to that, that it would be completely pressure sealed? So this super unappealing looking, I don't even, blower, I guess is the fancy term for it. I know, highly technical. So they do what's called a lowered door test. They take this, they somehow, in a technical way that I don't completely understand, and I don't have to understand it because I'm not an engineer, they close up the rig, attach this to it, and they turn it on. So what it does is it creates this pressure vacuum, if you may. And then they go around seals, window seals, exterior seals, slide, you name it, with essentially soapy water. So think like if you're testing for a LP or a propane leak, you're using soapy water and you look for bubbles. They're doing that on every RV. The time that takes in my head at the end of the day is nuts, but that's a big thing that they're doing, that they want less warranty issues coming out of the Brinkley factories. So they take the time, they do this now, and they do it with every single RV that leaves the facility, and they're hoping that it leads to less customer service issues, which makes for a better end experience for you. So why is that important? Because at the end of the day, hopefully you're not having to call them for water leaks and all kinds of leaks for whatever reason. Things happen, it's still an RV, but at the end of the day, at least you know this is happening on every single RV with a really technical blower. Okay, so I know I'm off camera for a second, but I wanted to point this out. So this is one of the last stations that the wheels are actually on their little, I'm gonna call them skis, I don't know what they actually call them. At this point, what's gonna happen is they push the rig back onto that green plate, support it up at the front, and then they do something that's incredibly unique to the build process of an RV. This rig literally backs up on top of this. They put the tire on top of this big green plate. What this does is really cool. So this shakes. You know, if you go to like the old like Ripley's Believe It or Not or something, and you get on like the earthquake thing and it simulates the earthquakes, that's essentially what they're doing to these RVs. Again, just like the seal test, every single RV hits this thing before it leaves the factory and goes into the PDI process. So it backs on this plate, and this simulates off-road travel for the RV. Not just around the road, we're talking off-road travel. I think Mad Max, no, not Mad Max, just, but I'm sure driving at a reasonable speed on like a slightly gravel road is kind of what the idea is there. So they're trying to jostle this. What does that do? So you're testing bolts, you're testing everything, you're testing every component on this and whether or not it can handle road traffic. If there is an excess amount of sawdust, remember about the vacuum thing up there? The sawdust will pool up. If it's too much and it's outside of what they would consider a normal amount, this thing goes back in line to figure out why that much sawdust came out. Also, any sawdust that comes out, if you've bought a new RV, you know what I'm talking about. That thing gets down the road, you open cabinets for like the first year, you find sawdust everywhere. You should find less because they're literally shaking it out right here. Every rig does this. That's insane. So literally just between the seal test over there and this, they add upwards of 15 minutes per coach in production time. That might not sound like a lot, but if you think about how many coaches need to be produced to fulfill orders, that amounts up to days of time very quickly and weeks of time over the course of a year. The fact that they're doing that is proof in the pudding, if you may, that they're trying to do it the right way. Plus, you know that you're getting a product that's at least been tried and true on these devices to try and simulate as much as they can. So we've moved on now to the PDI area, and I gotta tell you, if you notice, it's a lot brighter here all of a sudden. I've got a pretty good camera, but it's brighter here than it was back there. So if you look up above me here, you can see these strategically positioned, incredibly bright lights. Well, there's a couple things they do here. Yes, they do the normal PDI stuff. They walk through it, they make sure everything closes right, tolerances are correct. All the stuff you would hope happens in an RV gets done here. there are two things that they do that's above and beyond, and I have firsthand experience on the opposite side of one of these. One is every single RV that comes off the plant gets a full 360-degree photo, exterior as well as interior photos attached to that bin. So the dealer actually gets those pictures as well. So now they have a cross-reference point, but you can see what it looked like when it left the factory. That's awesome. The second thing, and this is the one I have firsthand experience with. If you've ever tried to order a part for your RV based on your VIN number, how hard is that? I can tell you how many different versions of the Carefree awning front cap that I've lost because I may have clipped the bush tree thing. And how many times is that wrong? Most. Can never figure it out. So you can actually have a parts list of every part that's been put on your RV so that you can find a replacement easier. Again, just one of those little things that helps greatly. One other really cool thing that they do here is they have something called the owner sub. Now most manufacturers have some version of this. Lights are blinking because they need me to cut it off. It's like the music at the Oscars when you're supposed to get off stage. The cool thing about that, right now there's over 200 videos of how to operate, how to maintain, how to do things on your floor plan specific RV. And I'm told that's just the beginning. So every single model is gonna have all these videos. So you have built-in video resources directly from Brinkley. What that enables you to do is be able to do what you want to do to your rig and understand where things are, how they work, and the proper way to maintain them, and almost more importantly, the wrong way. Don't do it the other way because this is the way that the manufacturer is asking you to do it, and they're giving you everything you need. So as you can see, they are doing some things very differently inside that building. Some things that are really, really cool that at the end of the day should make a better quality RV, which is what we all want when it all boils down to it. If you're interested in more information on Brinkley, make sure to check them out at brinkley.rv.com and visit your local dealer that you can also find on their website. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye, Mom.